expectation from this workshop is that after this meeting, each of you, the 29 fellows, you do something, an activity or a project, or even a small event as a result of your participation on this in this meeting. So as you are discussing in group, think about something that you will be doing with your chapter. So it's going to be individual activity in your country. So the group discussion should inspire you to do something. It can be a small thing, and we will support you with resources, with funding to do it by the end of this year. Because how we evaluate the impact of or the level of achievement of the Internet Society Action Plan, it also seeing what the chapter have done at the local level by the end of the year. So as you are discussing in group, think about what you're going to be doing when you return to your respective country.
Perfect. So which region is ready? Because we need to start. East Africa, please. You have 4 minutes starting now.
Okay, thank you so much. I have it down. We zeroed at having our priority as data protection and privacy. Then we looked at the action steps that we are going to take, and we had creating awareness, capacity building, training, lobbying, like getting government entities on board in order to implement, such as the Malabo Convention. And we went ahead to look at the target groups. We had multiple stakeholders, government, users, and then we gave ourselves a timeline of 1 year, working with partners as CSOs, government, citizens, private companies, and NGOs. Then we looked at the resources we needed. Those are we saw that we shall need the users of the internet. We shall need the meeting venues, the devices, the experts, and then the training materials. Then we also looked at the critical path. We first zeroed at building awareness, getting to see that governments get on board through policy and regulations. And then we looked at implementing the implementation of how data can be protected and people can have privacy to their data. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the Ugandan team in 1 minute? Sorry, for the East African region, not Ugandan team. Does anyone have any question for them? Real quick. Yeah. No? No, okay. All right, so the next region that is ready to present.
Merci, c'est Eden.
Thank you. It's the same. Senegalese chapter. I present West Africa. So we all chose the community network, and we realized that it is important, and that our communities that are not served by technical operators or telecommunications operators could benefit from the community network. So the actions undertaken, we already have ISOC, which has already launched a lot of training programs on capacity building of the key actors on the ground, those who go into the villages and then also far away areas. And so the target is the government, and then also the private sector, the public sector, and then civil society. The timeline we gave ourselves It's one method of prospection and consultations among the various stakeholders. The partners, we have USAID, then the NGOs, and then also all the various organs that are militating for the rights of human rights. Then also the resources, human resources, and then especially financial resources. We have human resources, and we're going to depend on all the various stakeholders, or at a level of each country, the groups or the associations that have the same purposes. We shall mobilize and sensitize them so that together we can train a group that has a specific agenda and a collective agenda to be able to implement this project well. Then from finance point of view, if you don't have enough finances and we have the technology, we can go and do the advocacy with those who have the finance to finance the project. Then we also discussed a little bit about the case of Zimbabwe, which has put together the antennae, but then cannot transmit because of the frequencies. So we told ourselves that in the course of putting in place this project, there could also be obstacles. And then also that would necessitate coming back a little bit to do the advocacy with those that have obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really a good laid out plan. Anyone with a question for them? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know, when I heard as if you are looking at setting up community networks or carrying out, I would like to know, are you going to set up community networks, or you're going to do community network trainings? Please clarify, because when you explain down, I feel training.
Thank you very much, Ivan. We are going to do community networks using the resources that we have, such as the trainings that ISOC is doing in different chapters, and even beyond members of the chapters, like in different countries, there are different entities that are benefiting from that particular capacity building. So that is what we are going to do. We're going to use the resources that are getting built to now implement the community networks. Thank you.
Any more questions? Just one? Yeah. That's it. Thank you so much, West Africa region. All right.
Hello. From North Africa, the priority area is in IoT, especially in smart farming and water saving. Action plan, we will working in awareness, training, capacity building, and practicals. Our target is private sector, farmers, community, and government. Timeline is about 1 year. Our partner, our suggested partner is ISOC, government, universities, private sector, and research centers. Resources, human resource, logistic, and some fund, another funds. The critical path is about the training and awareness, R&D, practical and policies for the using IoT in our region, and then evaluate the result of the project and making some pilots. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone with a question for them? Do you have a question for him?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Thank you. Great priority. I just want to maybe get a bit more of a sense on the breakdown of your 12 months or your 1 year. And why did you come up with a 1 year in terms of your project timeline? Thanks. Okay, so the question is a breakdown of your timeline. Yes, and why did you choose that timeline?
This from our experience for in making IoT projects. It's demand training. It's need to train new youngs. It's need some months, and to make some researches like this. Okay.
Thank you so much. And any other team that is ready?
Hello. I hope you guys had a good lunch, because I did. Our priority area in SADC is IoT regulation. And for our action, would start by identifying our stakeholders, which is the government, the regulators, our consumers and users, telcos, and also manufacturers and our innovators. And then we'll go on to setting up meetings with the stakeholders that we identified for engagement. We'll also run campaigns like social media campaigns for raising awareness, and also public dialogues. And then going on to our target. Our target is our users, our consumers, our IoT consumers, manufacturers. And then for our timeline, we had a timeline of 12 months, but we had split it. We have 2 months for planning. This is where we'll be doing our research and development. And then we set aside 6 months for doing the actual groundwork. And then we have 3 months for monitoring and evaluation, and then finally reporting. Our partners for this initiative would obviously be ISOC, academia, civil society, and then also the incubation and innovation hubs that we have across Southern Africa. Yes, and then resources we would need for this initiative would be obviously funding, good funding, that is, and then also experts and government participation. Yes, and then we've identified quite a number of critical paths, which is the first one is research and development, because that's a very important element in anything you would want to start or anything you'd want to do. And then also identifying critical partners is also a critical path for us. And then lastly, securing good funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Does anyone have a question for them? Okay, Central Africa.
Thank you. Dans le groupe Afrique centrale, on a
In the Central Africa group, we chose as a priority point the legal framework, because it is cross-cutting, and so the IoT legal framework of data management and privacy, that is the protection of personal data. Then in terms of timeline, we decided that it should be 12 months, because we need the greater part of the lobbying. And after that, we should do consultations on the ground with the various stakeholders and people who are concerned by this legislation. and especially with the local communities or the grassroots, women, private enterprises, and state enterprises that are concerned by the legal instruments. And then also in terms of logistics. Then also we present our goals, we present the context and the values that the law protects and so on, and what are these prerequisite jobs to be done. Then in terms of resources, our partners first of all, and we identified all the member states of ECAS with 10 member states in the Central Africa, Francophone to have a technical support and funding. Then the GIZ, which also finances a lot of things, the UNDP, then also the UNEP, because we would like to have the grassroots, and then also ISOC, ICANN, IoT. And in terms of resources, there are 3 types of resources. Financial resources, obviously, because in terms of budget, to do consultations on the ground, it has a cost. You have to pay those who go to the ground, and then also those who deal with the design, and then also the project. And we need financial resources for all that. In terms of human resources, we need a team having a lot of technical profile, the technical experts who master the IoT, and all that has to deal with the personal data. Then also a lawyer who has a digital background. And then especially the other resources concern people that to be consulted on the ground, on the field. Then also with regard to the path to follow, we first of all have to prepare the concept note, because we need to convince the partners who will accompany us, and what are the secondary objectives and the targets. Once we have the concept note, we can do consultations on the ground with the various stakeholders, and then also go to lobbying with the sub-regional institutions like CEMAC and ECAS. Here we are.
Okay. Maybe just one thing that I wanted to say before we go forward. Let's be very careful in the choice of words we use. Lobbying versus advocacy. Those 2 words mean something different. I think at the Internet Society, we do advocate for different aspects, but we do not lobby. Yeah?
Thank you. Maybe it's just my professional deformation. Advocacy is actually very accurate for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So advocacy. All right, thanks so much. Any questions for her? Okay, no question. Any other group that I've forgotten? No question. You have a question for her? Okay, ask her.
J'ai une question pour...
I have a question for our dear Esther. My question is to know how a topic can really cover a certain number of questions that are linked with the region.
C'est parce que je respecte le panel.
It's because I respect the panel that I have to answer you immediately. As we discussed in the regional group, we identified all the problems, and all the problems that we identified were existing fundamentally because there were no legislations or rules to govern them. We said all the 10 countries of ECAS and at a given time were victims. We all have access problems, quality of internet. We don't have legislations on IoT, whereas some countries are beginning to develop a lot of that. And that will help us to solve major problems because there are no rules that govern them. So in the face of the multitude of problems in our region, we decided to select the way of a legal framework because that will help to resolve so many problems at a time. Then also we act regionally because it helps us to solve the problems of each country because now we can go on the ground. We have the regional structure and those who have the capacity to really do the guidelines. So we need a global approach in order to economize resources. I hope I have answered your question.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Ramo, you have a question as well? Okay.
Thank you for this, Rabiao from Benin. Thank you for your presentation. I have a concern. How do you take into account the local context in the implementation of this strategy? Which context are you talking about? Because we know that a legal framework is not the most difficult to implement. It's rather the compliance with this legal framework that is the problem. If you have a legal framework that is implemented but which is not complied with, how would you achieve the goals even in the context of that framework? Thank you for the question, dear colleague. Already to be able to show for having dealt with the problems that each of the countries concerned, we begin with a regional consultation on a broader base that includes all the stakeholders, and especially those who do not have internet immediately. That helps you to have an approach right from the ground, and that shows you the problem. And we are sure that as we begin to draft the regional guidelines, we identified all the problems that identified all the stakeholders. If not, we cannot implement it on the ground. That is why in our timeline, at the beginning, there is a consultation part with the stakeholders, be they ministries, private enterprises, or the local communities or grassroots for the startup. Now, once the guidelines go through, there are certain sanctions within the law, but to be sure that can be well enforced, we should act upstream and then also look at all the needs and the values of the stakeholders. For us and our group, that was the best approach to adopt.
I don't know why your presentation is sparring a lot of reactions, but we are running out of time for that. Ramo, you've already spoken, so I can't give you another chance. Is there any other group that hasn't presented, first of all? Let's start there. You've all presented. Okay, put up your hands again. I'll just give everyone 30 seconds to say what you have to say, and then she can respond because I want to hear what you guys have to. So you, no, the lady first, because she was putting up her hand for a long time, and then you will go, and then South Africa will go last. Okay.
Okay, thank you. For me, it's not a question, but I want to comment. Notre cher ami du Bénin.
Our friend from Benin has asked a question very crucial or very important. That is, once the guidelines have been put in place, how do we be assured that the implementation on the ground goes on within a deadline or the best deadline? I say we cannot answer this question with a yes or no, but already upstream, there should be an initiative that should be taken, and that this initiative should be placed on the ground. In the second place, a guideline which is sub-regional has an important nature that goes up to the level of a challenge. So we establish a kind of challenge among states. And then there, I think that a lot of things play on the ego of each country. And so that can say that a state might not go in to implement for a decision that they take together. I hope the concerns of our colleague from Benin have been answered.
Okay. J'ai pas.
Yes, I was not that satisfied with the answer that was provided. I have an impression that we are trying to ignore our real local context. In Central Africa, I know you have CEMAC, if I'm not mistaken. And then also in West Africa, we have ECOWAS, and there are a lot of guidelines of this kind that have been put in place within these organizations. But then the enforcement at the local level, we don't have any sanctions behind them. I would not like to cite examples, whether it has to do with a digital order or with regard to energy or organization of elections. Nothing is done. Have we just decided to put in place a legal framework to respond to the requirements of technical and economic partners? If that is the case, we do not have any problem. If not, we'll put in consultants who bring out a beautiful document to be validated. But we should look at the problem statement of the enforcement. What they are doing here now is very beautiful. But if it is not, does not apply or is not enforced on the ground, then we'll go and on without having any answer. Just to answer you, I'm going to take something on which I have worked on, especially with ACAS. There are two organizations. We have CEMAC with 6 countries and ACAS, which has 10 countries, including the entire CEMAC, the DRC, Burundi, Rwanda, Sao Tome, and Principe. Currently, for the past 2-3 years, we began a process to implement the Nagoya Protocol by making national laws in each country. That is to look at the traditional aspects. So with the UNEP, we committed initiatives to accompany states in order to domesticate this Nagoya Protocol. And in the COMIFAC, there is a project that exists for the past 3 years that is accompanying states for providing internet services. But then they are all trying to implement and then also write national laws to be able to implement the instruments. Then also there are certain post-law guidelines, and we have to begin with the communities that have been consulted and the ministries to see how they own the laws. Then also it's like when you buy a field and then or you buy a plot and then you have a title deed. Now it is for these various stakeholders to ensure that their rights are respected because they have to grant to them what has been adopted. And as we speak, what are the mechanisms that make us to respect their laws in case their rights have been violated?
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for your questions and concerns. I think just in the interest of time, we have to close this session right here. Victor, I think you can help lead the next session on how we move forward. Okay, Verengai, you can just give a few comments.
Well, I just wanted to add that this was not just an exercise in vain, and I know Victor has some ideas of how we can take these plans forward. We don't just want it to be just an exercise. So maybe you can also speak to that, Victor.
Yes, thank you, Verengai. So to continue, as I said previously, is we truly want as an outcome of this meeting that you implement something at the local level that that will support what we have been discussing since Monday. But the group discussion that you just have, it was we have been talking about collaboration among chapters. So, and this group discussion among sub-region is also to see how if something can come out of it, a project that is not only led by one chapter, but that will be called by 1, 2, or 3 chapters that really want to work together. So, and we will see how we can support that moving forward. Maybe Verengai can.
Yep. Maybe my first ask would be just a quick write-up of this plan. I'm sure some of you have already done that process already. When you were discussing, you were putting those points down in the structure that we requested. So may you please be sure to send those to, and then we start from there in the next steps.
All right, thank you, Verengai. I think the next session is pretty much in line with this. Was going to really discuss, not discuss, but allow you to share your post-meeting project or activity with your colleagues and also with the regional bureau staff so that we can comment or we can see how to make suggestions for you to improve it. So I would suggest that if we allow everyone to present, it's going to take a lot of time. I also know that most of you are still working on the project. It's not something that you can present at this stage. So what I would suggest instead, the previous grouping was per sub-region. So now I want to invite people with project that the particularity that the project support one focus area. Like if your post-meeting project is on IoT security, you form one group so that you can share and see how you can mutually improve your project. And also if your project is on privacy or personal data protection, so you can join one group. You can form one group together and see how you can also exchange. Or I know some of you are truly interested on community networks. It was not the main focus of this meeting, but we won't prevent you on also discussing on making it at your post meeting project. So on that, I would say you want me, I can let you self-organize. So let's say community networks, I really like community networks. Let's say IoT security, or if your project is related to IoT or IoT security, you just join this side. And all of you want to work on privacy or personal data protection, you go this way. And as I mentioned this morning, some of you want to really do something that has not been even a discussion at the local level. Like you want to start the discussion in your country around encryption. If you have any project on that, you can. I don't want to form many groups, so you can just go this side. And for any other projects, community network or others that is in line with ISOC priority for 2019, you just come this side. So we have, so we can have that exercise for 40 minutes or 30 minutes if you do it quickly. So, and as you doing that exchange, also think about what you will need. I think you have already mentioned what you will need. Since the next session will be on how we can support you to achieve that little project.